Yeah, so wholesalers, they're the bottom barrel of, of the real estate world, right? I mean, just because, right? Like, what's the wholesaler say? Well, I don't want to have legal liability. I don't want to have a license.
I don't want to invest any money.
I don't want to invest any money. I want the best loophole I can to get out should I not want to buy. So I'm not saying there aren't nice wholesalers out there, but the pitch is that wholesaler comes in with no accolades, no license, no credibility, no money most times. And if you don't know who wholesales in Richmond, literally just Google Richmond wholesalers. That is what they are. They're typically notoriously untrustworthy. And then they hold the contract. Typically the seller is very unaware of this.
I was going to say, does the seller know that? Is that close?
Yeah, it depends on the wholesaler, it depends on the closer. So some closers can hide assumption fees. Depending on the closer, there is certain paperwork. Like I have an addendum, and the way the addendum's written, it essentially does not show my fee. And on the closing disclosure, it's not going to be on there. So they're not going to see it. A lot of times you do see it, and then sometimes you could run into an issue with sellers being like, what's this 30 grand, right? And then, I mean, all you can really say is like, well, you signed the contract, you legally have to do this, but you can start to get into some battles with people on that stuff.
Then you can do like a double close too, where you close on one.
Yes.
But you have to have the cash to do it.
There we go. See, remember, classy wholesalers may double close, but they'll typically...
I did one earlier this year. I thought it was going to be like a $30,000 sprint, and it was 80. So I was like, I like the guy, he's nice, he probably would have been okay with it, but I just didn't want to have that conversation.
That's it. So I closed on Hobson, I own it. So if somebody buys it off of me, I'm not really wholesaling it. Really what I'm doing is wholetailing it. It's a wholesale, but I'm kind of retailing it to you guys. But I own it already. So I've already bought it. I got the guy his stuff. I got him out. I helped him out. I did all the things I needed to do. And now I'm moving it on. So if you Google wholesalers, you'll find lots of them. And you can get on their email list and their text list, and they'll send you deals. Because I feel like we've still been in the basics. I still want to get complicated. We'll give you a quick example. Remember we gave you the thing that we want to get all your money back. So let's speed through this then. Property management, you're typically going to pay 8 to 10% for property management. That's just an average. As you get bigger portfolios, it's going to go down. I pay about 5.5 to 6% for all of my stuff, and then 0.5% to 1% of the month's rent, 1 month's rent for turnover. Because keep in mind, they're typically going to charge some kind of releasing fee. There's credit fees. There's different things that they're charging when they get tenants in. So you're going to pay for that typically. The property manager can handle your marketing, credit, background checks, rent collection, repairs, evictions. One thing I always look at my manager on is their advertising fee. Like if we have like 5 vacancies pop up, and then you're like, we got to get these things going, right? I know in my next monthly report, I'm all of a sudden going to see this spike in marketing or advertising. And while I'm happy that they got my stuff listed, really all they did was just throw some money at it. So like you said like earlier, I did everything, right? So you're probably the one doing everything to get it leased out. They're essentially just pumping up some marketing to get it leased out. But I don't have to deal with that. So remember, it's also not having to deal with it. A good property manager is going to give you detailed monthly reports of income and expenses. This is crucial. If you're going to do this stuff yourself, please keep detailed stuff. Because one of the biggest issues I have when we sell portfolios for people that are privately managed is I say, hey, can you send me a T12? That's a trailing 12 month of expenses. If you ever heard the term T12, get to know that term really well, especially if you're analyzing apartment deals or rental deals or portfolio deals. It's one of the first things you want to ask for, because we're in September, October right this second, right? But if you ask for last year's expenses, that doesn't tell you about this year. And if you ask for this year's expenses, it doesn't give you a whole year, because we're not done with the year. So if you're trying to run a year, the best thing you can do is get a T12, because it's going to show you last month and then 12 months back. Even better if you can get 3 years worth or 2 years worth. Then you can see what the property's been doing. Hey, oh, it's doing this right now, that's great. Hey, why 7 months ago was it bringing in 20,000 less, right? That's why those T12s come in. And a good property manager is going to have all of that. So every month, my property manager sends me a detailed report that shows me everything that happens. And then every quarter, I get a T3 that shows me the last 3 months. And then every year, I'm going to get a T12. And I can see where we went wrong. I can see what I need to pick apart about them, right? What I think they're doing right, what I think they're doing wrong, what to fix, what works. I can give it to my investors so that they can see, etc. Always do credit and background checks. That should be so common knowledge. Never accept or receive partial payments. That's 2101. We're going to keep moving. Loan consideration. This is where we're going to finish up and then hit bonus depreciation. So most investment property loans are going to require about 25% equity down on the appraised value. You can get some stuff at 20% down, but if you start moving into multi, if you start moving into, certain houses, rental loans, things like that, a lot of times it's 25%. Sometimes it can be even more as you get into multifamily and you get into different products. Sometimes they're going to require 30% down, maybe more. This is a big piece. Up to 10 properties can be financed with conforming Fannie Mae loans. What does that mean in layman's terms? That means you can put 10 houses in your personal name for a loan. Or a problem arises. Either you never want to own more than 10 properties, and if that's the case, that's okay. 10 is great. You can retire on that. But what happens when you want 11? Right? You have to move over to a commercial product at that point. So you might as well start with a commercial product in a lot of instances, just FYI on this. The other thing is, let's say you got 10 loans out in your name. Let's say 9, you can't do 10. And then you want to sell your personal house and go buy another personal house. What is the bank going to look at?
DTI.
They're going to look at DTI, and they're going to look at every single loan that you have in your personal name. And now you have 10 loans in your name, which means, has anybody gotten a loan in the last 2 or 3 years? Kind of sucks, doesn't it? It only sucks the better you get a business, by the way, right? Because it gets more complicated. This complicates the mess out of it, because they're going to DTI everything, and then what are you going to have to provide? You're going to have to provide financials on all 10 houses. You're going to provide T12s on all 10 houses. You're going to provide all of the leases on all of those houses to make sure that they're leased. And then on top of all that, then they can only use X amount of said income from each lease. So they're factoring all that into that income. So it's going to get harder the more you buy rentals. Maybe the first one's easy, the second one may be easy, but the closer you get to that 8 to 10, it's going to get more difficult. And it's going to make your personal life more difficult when you go to get car loans, house loans, things like that. Whereas if you just started with an LLC, also keep in mind the LLC cannot do a conforming loan. So you cannot put it in a business, which means you're open to personal liability on every single property you own. The second you put it in an LLC, it's gotta be a commercial loan, unless you do a conforming loan and then backdoor to an LLC later, which we're not going to talk about. 6-month payment interest, taxes typically required for each separate rental property. So they're looking at reserves for all the properties you hold. And then notice the refinance. Typically, 70% loan to value on a refinance. So what does that mean? Let's say I buy a house for $150. See how good y'all are at math real quick. I love doing math at y'all guys. Y'all been here for a while. You buy a house for $150. You know it's gonna appraise at about $240. What's the refinance amount they're gonna give you? And how much money can I then put into that house to fix up? See her reaching for a calculator. You got her calculator. 168. You're actually dead on. That's how I know you got your calculator. 168. But you bought it for 150, which means I can put how much money into the house without going over budget? 18. If I can get 168,000 into that house now, and on that refinance, they're gonna give me all 168 back. So now I got $0 invested. I can go and buy my next property with the money that I put down. But now this is where I'm gonna add a layer in for you guys. Who understands bonus depreciation?
A little. You're on my Monday coaching call. Okay, so you got to hear this a little bit.
Bonus depreciation is the way that all of you should be getting out of paying income taxes forever. Bonus depreciation was going away slowly but surely. It was sunsetting and exiting in our tax code. And then this year, they brought it back in the Big Beautiful Bill. So the Big Beautiful Bill reintroduces it. So who's heard of cost segregation? When you buy a house, any price, and it's a rental, the government allows you to depreciate that property down to 0. So you buy a house, the period in which they let you depreciate it is 27.5 years. If you buy a $275,000 house, you have a $10,000 write-off every year for 27.5 years. Do you think the house is going to be worth $0 in 27.5 years? Of course not, right? If anything, it's going to be worth 4 times as much. Here's the beauty of this. Because if you buy a stock for $275,000, does the government let you write that stock off? What happens when you sell that stock? Pay capital gains. As the stock makes you money and appreciates, do you get to use any of that money? Not without selling it. And then if you sell it, you also pay gains, right? We get to write off that property over 27.5 years. If we choose to do a cost segregation study, we hire a company, they do the study, they give it to us. What that cost segregation study does is it takes all of the pieces of the property that depreciate faster than 27 and a half years. Think HVACs, roofing, light fixtures, HVAC, carpet. It lets you depreciate it faster. Cost segregation would have let you write that off for 5, 7, or 10 years, and it's about a third of the value of the property that we try to get out of it. So if I bought that house, let's just call it 300 grand and make the math easy, and I get a third, what's my cost segregation basis? 100,000. And with normal cost segregation rules, I get to now take that over a 5-year period, which gives me a $20,000 write-off. With bonus depreciation, I get to take that $100,000 on year 1. So let's think about this. How much in taxes would I pay on $100,000 in income? Well, in that scenario. But if I didn't have it, how much would I pay?
About 15, 20,000.
Oh, more than that. The federal rate's 14.5. We live in Virginia, state 6.5. So you're 22 from Dead Start. And because we're self-employed with all of it, it's not W-2 income, you're gonna add 16% in for self-employment tax, Social Medicare, FICA. So you're at a 38% tax bracket, right? At dollar one, that's before it all starts moving up. So the reality is about 40,000 that I would pay in taxes, right? So if I buy that property and I can do a cost segregation study and I bonus depreciate, and then I save 40,000 in taxes, but I also refinanced all my money back, then what did I just do? Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to burr into the next property, right? We're talking about refinancing your money back. So if I'm in it for 60,000 and I pull my 60 back, but then I just made 40,000 in saved taxes, how much do I have now?
140 now.
And now I have 100. Well, if 60 plus 40 is 100. So now I have 100,000 for the next deal. But now what does 100,000 buy you? What about you a $500,000 house? What's a third of that?
166.
Okay, there you go. Now I did 166. What's my tax basis on that? 60. Now what do I have? 60. Do you see how if you just did this twice a year, you're gonna compound your return? You're still getting your cash on cash return, which may be infinite if you're burring, by the way, because you're pulling all your cash back. You have an infinite cash return. Your money back, you don't have to refinance more than you put in, so you can still keep your equity in the property. But that bonus depreciation piece is now going to give you a layer back where when you go to file your taxes, you're now saving all of that money. So now you're adding that in. Does that make sense? So you still have your cash in from the burr, the refinance. You have that equity, which in that sense of the 168 that Alexandra cheated on with her calculator, between that and 240, what's her equity? 72,000. So 72,000 in equity she held in the property, right? But in that same instance, we saved her 40 grand in taxes. So we made her 40 flat out that she kept in her pocket. She got 70,000 in equity. She's got an infinite cash return, and she has a $168,000 loan that's now paying itself down. And if that $240,000 property is appreciating 3% a year, she's also gaining another $8,000 on the home value every year. That's on a $150,000 buy house, right? You add a zero to that, and you do that a couple times a year, that's my business, right? I bought a 57 unit for $4.6 million in August. I bought a 72 unit for $8 million in January. I bought a 60 unit in September for $6.5 million, right? I'm doing this with 1 0 added. And all I'm telling everybody here is if you can learn it, it's so simple, right? Just back a 0 off, and this will build so much wealth. And really within 2 to 3 years, you're probably gonna add that 0 on. Just like in hopefully a year or two, I'm gonna add another 0, right? I'm shooting for $30, $35 million properties next, right? So I'm just trying to add a 0. So if y'all can learn the strategies, all we're doing is adding zeros, and the strategy is not gonna change. And ultimately your appreciation skyrockets, your depreciation skyrockets, your cash flow skyrockets. And there's no way you don't build just millions of dollars in portfolios.
The 70%, is that based on like the DSCRs?
I don't don't know what they're basing that on, to be honest. I think if you're going to go on commercial loan type, you could probably pull 80% and 75 in some cases. You could do 20 to 25. That you just get conservative on the numbers, but I think you start talking to local banks that hold portfolios and things like that, you could probably find people that'll do you a little better.
This portfolio loans, they base them off of a 30-year projection, but they do a 5-year balloon or.
Correct. Good point. So if you get into the commercial space on your loans, most commercial loans are going to be a 5-year, 7-year, or 10-year with a balloon. So you're still going to pay a 25 or a 30-year amortization, right? So we have a 30-year payment, but typically, depending on the rate you're going to get, within 7 years, you're going to have to refinance. So it's a forced refinance. Now you can do Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac commercial loans for 30 years. They exist. They are an absolute pain. My assumption was a Freddie Mac loan, and it's you're giving them finances every quarter, you're giving them net worth sheets every year, you're giving them all of your taxes every year. You're really up there. They do building inspections, all of those things. But if you can lock in, the rates are great, and you can hold multifamily or big commercial buildings for 30 years.